Hello, and welcome to CWO.digital, where this season we're combining our love for all things disruptive with our love for the greatest drink of all, talking about innovation in wine. Today's guest is the incomparable Harriet Tindal, Master of Wine and Director of Wine at Tindal Wine Merchants. Based in Ireland and serving as a wine expert for more than a few of our Chief Wine Officer events, Harriet's work sees her consistently encouraging innovative practices that ensure the long-term well-being of vineyards and the broader environment. Her forward-thinking approach is indicative of her commitment to leaving an enduring, positive impact on the wine industry, and I can hardly think of anyone better suited to discuss innovation in wine. And so, Harriet, welcome to CWO.digital. So Harriet, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. Let's get started by getting to know you a bit better. So could you explain, how did you come to choose the career that you have?
Well, Todd, thank you for having me. I'm in a family of wine lovers, although my mother might come against that overall blanket I've just given our family. But my father was always a lover of wine. He was a butcher a long time ago, but always had some bottles behind the counter. And I think his weekend activities tended to be opening decent bottles of wine with a serious slab of meat. So my memories are of smelling cold meat and fine wine. Well, I don't know how fine it was at that point of our lives, but and I love that smell still to today. But yeah, our Sunday lunches at home were always sort of opening different bottles, tasting, talking, and we all really love food and the provenance of food. So I think they go hand in hand. I then went off to university, had a lot of fun. I think I enjoyed drinking cheap wines and buckfast quite a lot, and then actually pulled out of university because I enjoyed it too much, but sadly not the course. The social life was more fun, and became a mother quite young. I got married very young, and then I sort of realized that actually I really wanted to get into something. And wine was the natural progression because I was still into food. I loved my cooking, and obviously, wine. I was becoming a little bit more tuned into the gentler, more sort of finesse rhythms of wines like Chablis and the ones that actually do still pique my notice. So I realized that perhaps I had a little bit of a head for the different styles. My father was, of course, trying to persuade me that it was a good idea. So yeah, that was where it began. When I was about 24, 25 was when I really started to work in wine.
Wow, what a great journey to have been on. Like, I can really picture your father's butcher shop with all those lovely smells and the bottle of wine on the counter. That's absolutely idyllic sounding. So throughout that process, you obviously chose to become a master of wine and ultimately the director of Tindal Wine Merchants. What's been the most important lessons that you've learned along that road?
I think humble, yeah, just that I don't know everything. When I started to think about going and studying for the Master of Wine, um, it was quite a big decision, but I never imagined I'd get onto the course. And when I did, that was the beginning of a whole journey of learning. And people say that when you're studying to be a Master of Wine, you go in with a decent enough ego, thinking you know a considerable amount about the wine world and wines in it, and then you come out having been knocked back a few times and learning that we are never going to know everything there is to know. And there's so much going on in around the world. It's so diverse. There's so many different varieties and different regions and different people doing different things that we're never going to completely understand all the wines of the world. So I think just being humble is a big part of what I do now, and being humble in that we're all at the hands of climate change and these erratic weather patterns that we're seeing. So it is a changing, moving market, and there's nothing certain. So I'm enjoying every day in my job and what I do, and hoping that it'll continue for a couple of generations. because wine has been with us since like 6000 BC. So, let's keep it going for a little bit longer, hey?
Yeah, I'll drink to that. That sounds like a great sentiment to me. On the subject of all of that uncertainty, especially around wine, are there any common falsehoods that you keep hearing time and time again? So it's something that you feel like most people don't actually understand about wine.
Yeah, I think a classic a classic was about 2 years ago. Cameron Diaz, who I think is a great actress, and she's obviously very successful in her own realm, but she started to make wine, and I think it was classic. She said, "Oh, I could never make organic wine because the grapes, they don't even wash the grapes before they ferment them." So I think one of the classic sort of misinterpretations that people have about wine is the fact that it's a very industrially produced product. And yes, a lot of the wines are, a lot of the supermarket wines and the mass produced wines that are, reeling out a few million bottles a year to sit on your shelves, they will be more mass produced and they will have huge stainless steel tanks. But some of them are just made in a wooden vat that's open. At Bellotto in Barolo, for example, Fabio has open vats in this amazing room, and it's the most beautiful winery I've ever been to. There are no flies; it's not dirty. His wines are some of the purest Barolos produced, and he just does it the traditional way. And I think people, especially in the realm of alcohol, think that we do all sorts of things to wine, and they don't realize that actually it is a natural process. It is a product of fermentation, which is purely yeast plus sugar equals alcohol plus carbon dioxide. And if you have a clean winery, you don't actually have to do much else. So I think that's one of the biggest misinterpretations people think, and also that red wine gives you hangovers, because I think it's just the quality of wine, and those more mass market wines that are more handled in the winery with perhaps less pure fruit, so they need a little bit more help. They would be the ones that would give you those hangovers. So, don't write off red wine.
I've certainly encountered my fair share of white wine hangovers. I can vouch that they are possible. Um, that's a really interesting points that you raise, though. Within wine, you're working with the raw materials of nature, and you're working from a roadmap drawn by tradition, thousands of years of tradition, as you've said. So, with that note, we're here to talk about the idea of innovation in the wine world. How do you feel that such a natural, traditional industry fares in terms of embracing innovation?
It's slow. There are a lot of people in the wine industry, young people, and they're really excited about more natural wines and skin contact wines. But if you look at these categories, these are categories that are where wine started. So in a way, wine's gone full circle. We're going back to the past rather than forward to the future. But this again goes back to the fact that wine is a natural product. But there's quite a lot of marketing and sort of label design that has moved a little bit with the times. So, for example, for provenance of wines, there's a company called Proof Tag, which has designed a sort of security tag, if you like, to show if a wine's been tampered with, which is really useful when you've got millions and millions of euro worth of wine that has been faked and people have lost huge amounts of money on it. You just need to look up the story about Rudy Kurniawan, which isn't a story, it's a true story. And he scammed a lot of collectors in the US out of a lot of money with fake wine. He was a very talented man, but so you have to be careful if you're spending money on wine. And the wine industry at that level, I think, has quite a lot of money put into research and development and looking at ways of protecting their identity. But on the other side, it's a very slow progress. I think I went on a bit of a curveball there. Sorry.
No, it's really interesting, and there's such a rainbow of ways that people enjoy wine, from the really high end collectors right down to the people like yourself when you're at university, just enjoying wine for the conviviality, for the fun of it, and sort of everything in between with this whole back to tradition movement. That in itself is quite interesting to me, because it's a case of deindustrialization, and that being the innovative thing. Do you feel like the way that people are enjoying wine is possibly changing? Is there a bit of a shift in how the industry is having to serve customers?
Yeah, it's very difficult at the moment. I spend my life trying to separate wine from alcohol, because wine throughout the ages has actually been proven, and there are studies to show that it has elements that are good for you. I have to admit, hands up, I went to ChatGPT and I said, just outline why wine is good for you. ChatGPT is on my side today. Um, I do think that ChatGPT, a lot of people in wine say, "Oh, AI, it's not going to help wine at all." It is 100% going to help people in wine. It's going to help new consumers understand. It's going to help on wine stores, with chatbots recommending wines. It is a really, really incredible tool, and I'm very excited about it. But about health. Um, Rich in antioxidants, wine contains polyphenols, resveratrol, and flavonoids, which are really good for your heart. It gives you improved longevity. So when you see old ladies trotting around Italy and Spain and the Mediterranean, and they have their glass of wine at lunch, but one glass, they have been helped by this resveratrol, which is a component in the tannins of wine. So more in red wines than in white. Brain health. Resveratrol again. Resveratrol is key, is exceptionally useful to protect brain cells from damage. Gut health, again, if the wine has been produced in quite a natural way, a fermentation still has some good bacteria in it that can go into your body and help your body break down the alcohols, which I find fascinating. And then stress reduction. We all know a glass of wine can reduce stress. So thank you, ChatGPT, for helping me with my wine health argument, which I hope other people will look at. And this is the biggest thing that I try and separate wine from alcohol, because we are seeing a huge reduction in people drinking nowadays. Because rightly so, we want to live a long life, and we want to be healthy. And the governments are telling us that alcohol is very bad for us, and it is. But everything in moderation.
Absolutely, even moderation sometimes. It's interesting that you mentioned ChatGPT. It really does seem like AI is touching every single industry under the sun. I can't conduct one of these podcast interviews without AI coming up at some point. It feels inevitable. It sounds like it's been really useful to you there in terms of finding that information about the health benefits that you've been looking for. Is it also something that can help people make better choices with the wine that they choose? Can it help us become better wine drinkers?
I think it'll give people more educated information than if you go searching on Google, because then you're going to get someone's opinion. I do like the fact that ChatGPT tends to balance out what's out there, and give a more measured answer, because there are a lot of journalists. It's actually the wine journalists who might, well, it's who knows. I mean, it's like looking into a crystal ball. The other day, I had to do a team training in the office, and I didn't have that much time to plan it. I knew what I wanted to do. I put in what I wanted to, the outcome of the training to be. I put in that we wanted to taste some wines, and I asked ChatGPT how they would do it. And they gave me a whole structure in 30 seconds. Of how I should structure the hour, what I should bring up, and brought some really, really interesting points into the structure that I wouldn't have thought of. So I think it's going to make us more efficient and better at our jobs, and then give us more time for creativity, which is something you were asking about the wine trade being traditional. The problem with the wine trade is that I know we're in a family business. We have everyone has a lot of hats, a lot of jobs they have to do, and time is of the essence. So if something like ChatGPT can give us more time, then we can be more creative and see perhaps some new marketing structures that might work on the younger generation. Obviously helped by ChatGPT on that and things like that. So yeah, I think technology is going to help a lot in the future, especially as we get younger people into the trade who really use them as a tool without thinking.
Definitely, it definitely sounds like it. On that subject of change, the need to change in order to survive and keep the wine industry healthy and alive. You've already mentioned briefly climate change in passing, which we would be remiss not to dive into for something to do with growing grapes, to do with shipping bottles all around. How is the wine industry adapting to meet the fight against climate change?
They are a sort of famous sentence that everyone uses is that viticulture is at the front lines of climate change because grapes are they're so particular to the weather patterns that are occurring, and you can lose an entire vintage because of a lot of humidity or something like that. So Bordeaux 2024, for example, and Burgundy 2024, huge amounts of humidity in the air, a very wet spring. And I know one producer, Thibault Ligier-Belair, who lost 80% of his crop in 2024, 80% because of rot, basically, amongst the grapes, because they won't use grapes with rot on them because they give an off taste. So you have to get rid of all those grapes, and you then end up with just a handful of production to work with. But on the other side, what's interesting is the warmer summers and the drier summers are very difficult. And it's not just the viticulturists who have to change, it's also the grapes, which seem to be evolving and changing the way they grow to deal with the weather. So, for example, I think it was either 2020 or 2022 in Bordeaux. Both of them are quite warm years and quite dry years. And Merlot is a grape variety that is known for loving the heat. It ripens faster than Cabernet Sauvignon, and it's ready before Cabernet Sauvignon because Bordeaux is a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot and some other little grapes, but those are the main two. And so everyone presumed that the right bank in Bordeaux, which is Pomerol and Saint-Emilion and more Merlot heavy, would have lesser wines in the warmer year. With the drought and the heat, because the Merlot would have got really, really high levels of sugar and lower acid, and the wines would be flabby and wouldn't be as good as the Cabernets. And the opposite actually showed. Cabernet really struggled with the drought, and Merlot seemed to reach deep, dig deep, and manage itself better, and slowed its ripening, and held on to the acidity. So the wines, even the producers, when you ask them, you say, well, how are these wines showing such good levels of acidity? And the producers are like, well, we actually don't know. It's a bit of an anomaly. And the only thing we can see is that the vine is managing itself to altering its way it grows in keeping with climate change. So nature is amazing, you know? Uh, and we can try and ruin the planet, but nature will try its best to survive as well.
Nature's the original innovator, is it not? That's so interesting, absolutely fascinating. As things continue to change, not just in terms of the climate, but also that this continued shift in tastes, new technology, bringing back old traditions, the continued pace of change. How do you think your job will be different 10 years from now?
I think the cost of alcohol will have increased. People will certainly be drinking less. But that could mean that smaller producers who are producing wine in a more sustainable way are receiving the accolades that they deserve. And when you look at the cost of wine at the lower levels, what the majority spend on a bottle of wine is not enough. It is not sustainable, the amount of money we spend on wine at the moment. So I think if the cost of wine increases and it's not down to taxes, I think that would be a good thing for the producers and for us in the long term, because the wine would be produced in a more caring, more careful way with better grapes. But also, I hope that there'll still be the diversity of wine, because some wine production regions are getting very, very hot and very, very dry. Spain, some of the bigger regions in Spain, like, you can't walk outside in the middle of summer. Even in Bordeaux, it's very, very hot in the middle. So I think the wine map is moving. We've just taken on a producer from England, from the South Downs, and it's hard enough in Ireland to sell an English wine. But luckily, the producer is an Irish winemaker. It's Dermot Sugrue of Sugrue South Downs. And he is producing extraordinarily excellent wines, sparkling and still, from the South Downs and Essex as well for his still wines. And they're being put in the ranks of grower champagne, which is more expensive than your Grand Marque champagne and more sought after. So if the UK is doing that now, in 10 years' time, I would expect to see a huge amount of these sort of less well-known regions producing wines that are much more at the forefront of what we're buying and what's on our shelves because of climate change, because of the way it's changed.
That's absolutely fascinating. I personally, I'm based right around the South Downs, so I'm definitely going to have to check out that South Downs winery you mentioned. It sounds fantastic. So Harriet, thank you so much for your time on the podcast today. It's been such an interesting chat. Last of all, what can you tell us about your work with Tindal Wine Merchants? Where can people find you online, and how can you help them drink better wine?
So Todd, we're based in Ireland, and we wholesale to the trade, importing from all over the world. I'm the main wine buyer, and my code of practice is to deal with people who are as passionate as we are. So our wines are generally from smaller producers. We have some larger wineries we work with, as every company does, but they are also tend to be family companies, which is nice. But we have a little offshoot, which is Searsons Wines, which is a shop in Monkstown and can be found online at searsonswine.com. And I have another hat, which is a wine broking business, which is Tankersley Wine Brokers, which can also be found online. And this very much is dealing with fine wine that we can ship internationally at lower margins, and obviously hoping that the proof tag is sitting on the bottle and proving provenance of the wine. It is a really interesting sector, and something that I spend quite a lot of time with, thanks to my travels in Bordeaux and Burgundy. So I'm also on Instagram as well, and occasionally put up some very random pig-related posts, because during lockdown, we gathered a few pigs together, and I've become a verified pig breeder. And I have pigs rambling around in my woods in Wicklow in Ireland, and they are absolutely delicious, and they have nothing added but thyme. They don't get any antibiotics, obviously. They get wormed once, and the taste of the meat is amazing. So where I come from with my provenance in wines, I also come from with my provenance for food. And now I'm very choosy about the meat I eat.
How interesting. Well, thank you very much. I hope our listeners certainly check out your pig-based content, but also all of your different wine hats as well. Before we say goodbye, if you could leave them with one final piece of advice, what would you say to our listeners?
I think what I'd say, and it's how I live my life, and I really enjoy my life because of it, is I drink well. I drink a diverse range of wines that really fill me with joy, but I drink less because the wines that I drink, they wouldn't be the cheapest wines off the shelf. And at a level, you get a higher level, you get much more diversity and interest in a wine, and you can learn more. So, wine is an adventure, and that can be an adventure throughout your life, but we do need to respect it.
Thank you so much, Harriet. It's been amazing to have you on the show.
Thanks, Todd.
I'd like to thank Harriet Tindal once again for joining us on the show, and thanks to you for listening. You can look out for more podcasts coming very soon, or visit cwo.digital for long reads, articles, and more. Until next time, thanks again.